If you're a parent, you know there are all sorts of sounds you learn to decode. But there's one sound that just defies all logic. It's that scream from the nursery in the dead of night that sounds like absolute terror, but then it just vanishes. So let's get into this, because what's really going on is one of the most fascinating and frankly reassuring stories in all of neuroscience. So picture this. It's 2:47 a.m. The house is completely, utterly still, and then you hear it. It's not a cry, it's not a whimper. It's this raw, primal scream that literally sends you flying out of bed and down the hall, your heart just pounding in your chest, convinced something awful is happening. You burst into the room, and what you see is just terrifying. Their eyes are open, but they're kind of glazed over and strange. Their little body is all rigid, their face is flushed, and they are screaming like they're in agony. So you scoop them up, you hold them tight, you whisper their name, and nothing. It's like they're not even there. And then, just as fast as it started, it's over. They just go limp in your arms, completely peacefully asleep again. And you're just left there, standing in the dark, your own heart racing, just trying to process what on earth you just witnessed. And the first question that pops into your head is, was that a nightmare? But it seemed so much worse than any bad dream you can possibly imagine. Then, the real fear starts to creep in. Where they hurt? Was there some kind of pain you couldn't see? You might even find yourself checking them over, just looking for any possible reason, any explanation for that level of sheer distress. But this is the part that really haunts you. What were they going through? You were right there, holding them, trying to help, but they were somewhere else completely, a place you just couldn't get to, where your comfort, your voice, your touch, it meant absolutely nothing. And that feeling of helplessness, it's just profound. Okay, so to solve this mystery, we've got to start with the first and honestly the most important clue. And it all comes down to the fundamental difference between your brain and your baby's brain. This right here is the absolute key. We tend to think of a baby's brain as just, a mini-me version of our own. But it's not. It's a totally different kind of organ, doing a kind of work that our adult brains finished up a long, long time ago. For a baby, sleep isn't really about resting. It is the most intense period of construction their brain will ever go through. I mean, we're talking billions of connections firing, forming, getting organized every single night. So think of it less like a quiet library and more like a massive 24/7 construction site with all this heavy machinery running all night long. Okay, so let's pop the hood and take a look at the engine room to see how this all works, because the science of how babies sleep is where we find the real mechanical reason for that terrifying scream. Now, this chart shows the huge difference in what's called REM sleep, or active dreaming sleep. While we adults spend maybe a quarter of our night in REM, newborns spend over half their sleep in this state, and that's no accident. REM sleep is basically prime time for the brain's development. It's like a nightly software installation where all the new skills and memories are getting hardwired in. So, during all this intense REM activity, a baby's brain is just firing on all cylinders. But here's the thing. The wiring that's supposed to contain all that activity, the part that stops you and me from, physically running in our dreams, well, it's still under construction. The insulation around the wires isn't quite finished yet. So that intense neurological energy can literally spill over into the body, and it comes out as a physical expression. So here's the crucial takeaway. That scream isn't coming from a scary thought, or a monster, or a bad dream. It's not a psychological event like we'd experience. It is a purely physiological event. It's the raw, unfiltered sound of a nervous system just working at its absolute maximum capacity. And this brings us to the big aha moment. What you most likely saw that night wasn't a nightmare at all. It was something else entirely, something with a specific scientific name, a sleep terror. This little chart breaks down the differences perfectly. Just look at the rows for awareness and memory. See, with a nightmare, you wake up, you know where you are, and you remember bits of it. But with a sleep terror, the person is completely, profoundly asleep. They have zero memory of it later. And see how it happens in deep non-REM sleep, usually in the first few hours of the night? That's exactly why they seem so unreachable. I want you to let this one really sink in. When your baby is having a sleep terror, they are not just asleep. They are in one of the deepest possible sleep states a human brain can even get into. The parts of their brain that would register you, your touch, your voice, they're physiologically offline. They're just not on. And what that means is that you were not feeling to comfort them. You couldn't. It was never even a possibility. You were trying to reach someone who was, for that moment, deep inside the construction site of their own mind, a place where outside signals just couldn't get through. Okay, so let's reframe this whole thing. Let's go back to that moment at 2:47 in the morning. But this time, let's look at it not with fear, but with this new understanding. That terrifying sound, it wasn't a cry for help. It wasn't a signal that something was horribly wrong. In a really strange and powerful way, it was actually a sign that everything was going exactly right. It was the byproduct of intense, vital, neurological construction. That scream, it was the sound of a brain building itself. It was the sound of a nervous system running its drills. It was the sound of a human being doing the most profound developmental work they will ever do in their entire life. And your part in all this, what was your job? Well, your job was to do exactly what you did, to show up, heart pounding, ready to protect and comfort. Your parental instinct was perfect. You were there, standing guard just outside the construction zone, which is exactly where you needed to be. So the next time you hear that sound in the dark, maybe you can just take a breath, because the sound that frightens us the most as parents might just be the beautiful, chaotic, and truly extraordinary sound of a mind coming into being.